Hey everyone, it's Heather here, and I have an especially crafty card to share with you today that is created with my new Craftiness is Happiness clear stamp set and the Hey Crafty Friend stamp set that are new for the June release at Tailored Expressions. I'm using the main Hey Crafty Friend sentiment from the Hey Crafty Friend stamp set, and I'm going to stamp that first on a piece of sugarcube cardstock using Oreo ink. I'm going to do an emboss resist technique, and whenever I want a sentiment to show through that, I stamp it first so it shows through all of the color and embossing that I'm going to layer over the top of it. So I'm putting that sentiment stamp into my MISTI, and I picked it up with my lid, and right now I'm just lining it up to make sure that sentiment is going to stamp straight. I'm using Oreo ink, and I'm going to ink up that sentiment, and then I'm going to close the lid of my MISTI to stamp that onto the piece of sugarcube cardstock. I missed just a corner of that sentiment, so the best part of the MISTI is you can ink it up again and stamp it again. And it looks like I'm good to go. There is a lot of embossing on this card, and so I'm coating the surface of my sugarcube cardstock with a powder tool. Here's the new Craftiness is Happiness stamp set, the clear set. I'm really excited that this set is making its debut as the first in the Clearly Crafty collection, and I can't wait to see this collection grow. So I'm going to create a background with these cute crafty supplies all over this card, and so I'm just lining up my images where I want them on the card, and then I'm embossing everything with clear embossing powder. And just a reminder, make sure you put the black pad back into your MISTI when you're stamping with clear stamps. I forgot, and I bet you will too. I picked up the clear stamps on the lid of my MISTI, and now I'm using Versamark ink to ink up the stamps, and then I'm going to stamp that onto my piece of sugarcube cardstock that has the sentiment stamped on it. I'm stamping right over that black sentiment. I'm using clear embossing powder to emboss the images that I just stamped onto my cardstock. Once I have the embossing powder onto the stamped image, I'm going to use a heat tool to melt that powder and emboss the image. And then I'll keep adding and stamping more crafty supplies to build a whole background on this project. Once I have everything embossed, I'm just going to use a little bit of adhesive to stick this down to another piece of cardstock so I can do some ink blending. I'm using pineapple ink first with an ink blending tool, and I'm just moving the ink blending tool across the embossed images. Wherever the image is embossed, it will resist the ink. One thing you should know about Tailored Expressions inks is they don't move well with water. So if you let things dry too long, it's going to stain your embossing powder because it is a little bit more permanent than some other dye inks. But if you move quickly, and you don't have to move at lightning speed, but if you move quickly, you're going to be able to achieve some really pretty embossed resist results. So next I'm using Cookie Monster ink, and I'm overlapping the pineapple and Cookie Monster a little bit too to get some different colors showing through, like there'll be kind of a green overlap in that area. And then once I have that Cookie Monster ink down, I'm going to add my third color, which is Fruit Punch. So with the three kind of primary colors, we're going to have some really fun color mixing happening in the blends between the colors. The Craftiness is Happiness stamp set has a lot of fun splatters and scribbles and brush strokes that you can add to your project, and I'm going to add those next to my embossed and blended background with sugarcube ink. I love little typed words, and so I tucked quite a few into this Craftiness is Happiness set, and I'm going to take and arrange those onto the background and stamp those with Oreo ink. I'm using 3 colors of liquid watercolor, Cherry Pop, Cookie Monster, and Pineapple, and I'm going to use a water brush to add a few more paint splatters onto my project. So I just put some of the liquid watercolor onto an acrylic block or other surface that will work for that, and just add it to my brush and tap it on my finger to add the splatters to my project. I'm all done applying color to the embossed background, and now I'm using a paper towel just to wipe the embossed images a bit. It really helps clean up the background, and it really helps sharpen the images a lot. I pulled out the Hey Crafty Friend stamp set again, and I'm using the Let's Create sentiment, and I'm going to add that onto a notched banner right underneath the Hey Crafty Friend sentiment that I stamped on the card at the beginning. I'm stamping the Let's Create onto sugarcube cardstock using Oreo ink, and I stamped it twice just to get a nice crisp impression. To die cut out the Let's Create sentiment, I'm using the double-ended flag stacklets. I ended up using the largest size to make sure that the sentiment fit well onto the stacklet. Once I had the Let's Create die cut out with the double-ended flag stacklet, I'm attaching it underneath the Hey Crafty Friend sentiment on my project. I'll trim off that extra piece of banner that's hanging off the edge of the card, and I'm also going to add some sewing machine stitching right to the edge of that banner. I'm adding adhesive to the back of the embossed piece, and I'm going to add that to a toffee card base, leaving just a little border of toffee cardstock peeking at the top and the bottom of the card. For a final finishing touch on this card, I am using some of the Snow Flurries sequin mix, and I'm attaching sequins just scattered around the sentiment. I'm attaching the sequins to the card with some of the multi-matte medium. Here's a look at the finished card created with the Craftiness is Happiness and Hey Crafty Friend stamp sets. You can find these sets and all of the supplies that I used to create this card at tailoredexpressions.com. Thanks for joining me today, everybody. I'll see you next time.